So I really want to thank Madz from ENM, which is the Environmental Network Manawatū in Palmerston North. She stepped into the breach literally 2 days ago, if not yesterday, got the final kind of like, okay, we're doing this. So we're just logging her in now. But it's quite nice to have a different perspective from more of the North Island, because what I think I would acknowledge is that we have quite a Pākehā perspective in Golden Bay and who they're working with, and also especially I find in Golden Bay we are quite a small community who know each other, and it'd be really interesting to talk to those who come from Whakatū about more of the breadth of connections, what you weave, and up the Motueka Valley there's lots of different initiatives. Although we might be disparate in terms of our travelling over the hill 2 hours to get to Whakatū, we can still weave that information, and now we can weave that information through Zoom calls to the North Island to learn from them. I think we're more connected than ever in some ways.
Thank you. So kia ora everyone, I'm Madz from ENM, and I'm really grateful to be invited to come and speak to you today. I know that you were expecting to hear from somebody far more prepared and probably more intelligent, so apologies if I babble a little. I have really fond memories of being down in Golden Bay with tides, and so thanks to Di, who now works for our organisation, and her connection to that, and also Rita, I have been asked to fill a gap. So I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing at ENM and who we are, and then a little bit about the work that we've been doing for the last few years in food sovereignty around that space. In fact, it's interesting, the reason that I am even at ENM is that when I was a little bit younger, I had young children. My eldest is now 23, and I guess they were 5 or 6, and I started community fruit harvest in the Manawatū. So I would just walk around with the kids in the pram, and I was looking at lots of grapefruit largely, but other fallen fruits in backyards and just wasting and rotting on the ground. And I was like, why is that just rotting when people need that and we could just collect it and give it away? So I put some notices in the paper and started a Facebook group, and got a whole bunch of people together to collect fruit as people phoned me and said, I've got some fruit you can come and get. So I coordinated a bunch of volunteers to go and collect fruit from around the whole Manawatū region for a number of years, and that organisation has continued ever since then. It's a little bit of a hiatus at this point, but it was some fantastic times. Probably one of the highlights was a pumpkin farmer, a squash farmer that phoned me once over in Bulls, which is about 20 minutes from Palmerston North, and said, look, I've got 50 acres of squash that we're not going to harvest because the bottom's fallen out of the market. I can no longer send this to Japan. I can't even afford to harvest them. So if you've got some people that want to come and collect them, then feel free. And he gave permission for any, Bob, Dick and Harry to turn up. So we went out there, and I put a notice on our quite active Facebook page at the time and said, go to the paddock at this time on this day, bring your trailers, bring your cars, bring your people, and collect what you can. And we had hundreds of people turn up and took away tons and tons of pumpkins. I couldn't keep count of how many people were there. There was horse floats, there was trailers, and I personally took a trailer and a car of some kind, filled it up, and then dropped it. I've got some photos in my archives of kind of pumpkins. I just piled them up on the ground outside one of the local schools because I just was trying, and they all went, but there were people giving them away in the poor area of the town. It was just really wonderful time, and interestingly, we only kind of touched just a tiny bit of what was available. We all wanted to kind of take everything and give it all away, but it just literally was. There was just so much surplus there. So that's just a little bit of me. Since then, I started working at ENM and have continued till today. So what is ENM? Well, we are all about connecting and inspiring communities for environmental action. our vision is that all life is part of a thriving, self-sustaining ecosystem, and that ecological and human communities in the Manawatū River catchment are living in harmony. So our catchment area, the groups that we support go all of the way from Norsewood on the eastern side of the Tararua Ranges, right through to Foxton, where the river meets the sea, and through Palmerston North. So what motivates us is our responsibility to care for the earth and each other, becoming better te tiriti partners, collaboration and inclusivity, and a belief that small actions can have a big impact. We were formed about 20 years ago by a small group, well, a number, probably 10 or so organisations, 10 or 15, largely biodiversity related organisations, who were all doing really important work on the ground, some weeding, some trapping, some plantings, but they were finding that it was really hard to get their voices heard, and it was really hard to do the grind, and it was hard for them to find time to talk to each other and find out what was going on. So they wanted to form an organisation that helped to hold them together and to help connect them, build the capacity and the capability. So that's where we've come from, and we now have a we're the sector lead partner with Palmerston North City Council. So we have a decent sized contract with them to provide sector leadership for the environmental sector of Palmerston North. But as I said, we work beyond the city. And our core kind of purpose is, rather than, while we do some projects, and you'll see some of that, the core idea and ideology really is around building groups' ability to do better for themselves. So giving them opportunities to connect, bringing people into their fold, and building capacity and capability in various different ways. So our four kind of areas of focus are an area of climate action, biodiversity protection and enhancement, community food sovereignty, and circular economy. So obviously today I'm going to be talking about community food sovereignty. So for us, it's really about the right to healthy, culturally appropriate food grown locally and sustainably. So we're working to help support that in multiple ways, and largely by trying to help groups that are doing this work, and by bringing those groups together. So how do we support them, and how do we support the community towards food sovereignty? So we provide some communications, resource sharing, networking, collaboration, and advocacy. We send out, so in communication, we send out a monthly newsletter, goes out to our members and the wider public. We amplify our member group voices through social media. So, as they're doing things, we're making sure that we're sharing it. We're letting people know how they can get involved, how they can access free food, how they can get to know community gardens, how they can get involved in that. We sometimes share like little tiny educational resources on there. We have an events calendar of what's going on. So if somebody's hosting a meeting or hosting a working bee, that's all on our events calendar. So anyone in the Manawatū region who wants to get involved with environmental activities often comes to us, and will find us on our website, and then we'll find that and be able to handpick when they're available and what suits them. And the website will host all of that stuff and more, so has a whole lot of resources and information on our 4PO area. We have a bunch of resources that we can share. So we've actually got a funding pool that has been funded from the City Council for the last 4 or 5 years. For the last 4 or 5 years, that's been $50,000 a year that goes to the Palmerston North City community. We've just received a new contract with Eastern and Central Community Trust, and we can now give $165,000 a year out to community groups doing environmental projects on the ground, including food sovereignty, including climate action, biodiversity, and circular economy projects. And there's two elements to that fund. We have a part of that fund is really small amounts, so up to little projects up to $1,000, and that can be accessed by anybody. It can be accessed by individuals, by small groups, by unincorporated anythings. Anybody who basically says, I'd like to do a thing, but I just need a little bit of money to do that. They do an environmental thing, obviously. They can access that money up to $1,000, and we also provide, our staff will provide some support services to help them to pull that together. For an example of that is we had an application that was very lightweight on details that our board couldn't approve because they didn't really feel confident that it was going to be successful. But they said, look, I think the idea is good. I think this guy just needs a bit more help. So he actually came in and sat with us, with one of our staff. He doesn't use a computer at all, so our staff sat with him and questioned him and pulled out the information from his brain and helped him to navigate writing that application up so that he can be successful in delivering his, he wants to start a little bicycle repair program from his garage and needs $1,000 just for a little bit of signage and a little bit of marketing. So that kind of thing. There's a lot of community gardens that are going in because of that. A lot of pātaka kai, and then the second half of that funding, people can apply. So if they are a full-blown group, if they're have an incorporated society status or a trust or something, some kind of official organisation, they can apply for up to $15,000 for a project, and that can include the time that it takes to deliver that project. So we're trying to make it so that it's really enabling, so that it's not just on stuff and things, but that people can help to pay a little bit of staffing or wages to make the things happen. We've also we take in some donations of a sort of equipment which either gets given away again or gets used in the network. So we've got spades and rakes and wheelbarrows, and we've also purchased a van and a trailer which we use in our work, and also that our members can borrow to collect compost or pick up big things that they need to drive around town to do the work. It's an electric van that was donated by lotteries. So that's awesome. We've got a little seat.
The sound.
No, she's still.
Yeah.
Volunteer who runs around town every couple of weeks and checks on those seed exchanges and it tops them up with seeds from the pile of seeds, or and writes down exactly how many things have gone and how many things are coming in. So people can put stuff into the seed exchange, or they can take things away. So we have one of those in our office showroom as well. And then we're helping to find volunteers and run events alongside a variety of organisations, so supporting their actual work on the ground as well as a resource. So one of the pieces of work that we do around food sovereignty, which is this is our gold star, from our 4 PO, our food sovereignty PO is really our kind of gold star of how we're running these networking events. We have 4 hui a year, and about 40 or 50 people are coming every time to those, to connect with each other, to hear from each other around how they're going in the food sovereignty space. How's their community garden going? How's the need going in the community? What struggles are they having? Or how can we better develop collaborative work together? So we run a whole range of conversations, facilitated conversations. Those who are usually sort of 2 to 3 hours plus lunch. So, kind of do take up at least half a day over the middle of the day. So it's pretty amazing having that many people who are, committed to regularly attending them. And the feedback from those events is always, those who are amazing. I always go away feeling really inspired and really connected, and I make new connections every time. And that's really for us what it's all about, is that people are coming and then being connected and then being inspired and able to go away, knowing that they're supported in the mahi that they're doing. What else does it say on here? We do a bit of other stuff that you can read. And then I think this is, coming to who you really wanted to hear from today was really a mana whenua perspective on kai sovereignty. And obviously I don't bring that, but I think coming back to our motivations as an organisation, that being a Te Tiriti partner, honouring Te Tiriti is one of our, top 4 motivations for what we're doing. And so we are consistently looking at how we do that better. And so looking at who are we collaborating with and how are we collaborating with them so that we are being mana enhancing, but also so that we are, supporting aspirations of mana whenua, as opposed to us just going, hey, we want to do this thing, will you support it? It's really like, what are you trying to achieve and how can we support that? So I've got 4 points here. So Order Connect is a program of work that we have been involved with for the last, since 2020, since before 2020, 2019, so quite a few years. Ora Connect is a collaboration led by Rangitani o Manawatū, mostly for social service organisations, but for actually cross-sectoral collaborations within a particular area of town, a postcode within Palmerston North called 4412. So it's the western suburbs which have high deprivation. There's a high number of migrant population in there, but there's also a high number of Māori and Pacifica families that live in that area, and it has, some statistics that are less than pleasant, and so about 2018, 2019, Rangitani o Manawatū brought everybody together to say we want to build community wellbeing in this area, and how can we do that together, and how can we do that with a collective approach. And so E&M came into the conversation pretty early on with that around some of the things around food need, and our challenge or our wheel to that space was, well, we could put more food banks here, but that isn't the answer. Like we don't really think that food banks is going to build people up. So we kind of, and our Food Action Network lead at that time, Helen Lendorf, who is amazing. She's actually an author, and I encourage you to look her book up. Helen Lendorf has written a book about I think a personal memoir called A Forager's Life, but it's got some gorgeous anecdotes about activism and food and a gift economy. So she's amazing. So she worked with us for a period of time, bringing our network together, and she went into that space and was like, well, what about community gardens? How are we going to build people's knowledge? How are we going to get people to be sharing together better? So they really valued that input and brought us into that space, and so we've been working in that space in the Kai Sovereignty Squad for several years, and part of that work we helped to develop initially in 2020 the Kai Sovereignty strategy for the 4412, Kai Resilience Strategy. All these names keep mixing up. Kai Resilience Strategy for the 4412, and we've been working with the community on helping to develop that for the last few years, and also just as kind of assessing how that's gone. So it's actually shifted quite significantly from just food banks and stuff. There's a huge amount more activity happening since that work happened. So it's been really great to be in that space. We're currently working with Massey University on a Kai Sovereignty resource, and as part of that development, they've been researching some literature studies on what Kai Sovereignty is, and then they've also been going out and talking to some of the people in the local Kai Sovereignty space, and some of the people on the ground, and they've been making sure that they're capturing a mana whenua perspective from Rangitani and from an organisation called Tāhuri Whenua. So we're hoping to release that by the end of the year or maybe early next year. We're going to release a small resource around food sovereignty, probably a little video or a comic book or something. We haven't quite pinned down what that is yet, but it's coming. Kurihia Kai, we're a member of that organisation, which is Moko Moros is one of the leaders in that space, and that brings a really beautiful connection into looking at the various different spaces, tangata tiriti's input into food sovereignty, tangata mana whenua's input into it, and also tangata Pacifica's input. So there's sort of 3 squads that sit in that space, and then Environment Hubs Aotearoa for us have been an amazing support over the last few years, and have been also critical in helping to push us in our tangata tiriti journey. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. I think we're nearly there, yes. So one of the other things that I think has been really critical in moving this space for the Manawatū towards food sovereignty has been advocacy work and being a squeaky wheel, consistently stepping up to the council and to to people who have power and make policy to make change, to say, look, food is critical, food need is going through the roof, and people's access to healthy local food is declining, and people's knowledges are declining, and how can we help that? And what is our responsibility as a council or as a as government agencies? What are our responsibilities to people? One of them is that they have good, there's housing, there's, get access to roads and whatnot, but actually having access to local food and local knowledge is really important. So kind of consistently squeaking at them around that. And I think, even just that collaborations in the sheet before, talking about the connections beyond our own region, looking at what's happening elsewhere, and you guys doing this today is an exact example of this, and arming ourselves with that knowledge of what's possible, so that we can share that and say, look, why aren't we doing this here in our space? And so from some of that work and from the work, so the PNCC food resilience policy that we've that they have just adopted in 2025, 2024 maybe, very recently, they have they only did that because we told them they had to, and that we told them that they had to multiple different ways, and that also came out of the piece of work that we did with Ora Connect around the food resilience strategy for the 4412, highlighted that as, look, if resilience policy in the minds of officers, they are, when any activity is happening across the council, they should be looking at all of their different policies and say, look, how does this impact on this policy as well? How does this impact on that policy? So if we're putting in a new garden, are we considering that this could be a public food garden? Are we considering that this is this piece of roading needs, so the various different questions that come up. So having a food policy, and then as a community group, we can go back to them and say, look, you're not listening to your own food policy. How are you going to do that? As a fallout of that, when they did adopt that policy, which we helped to kind of give lots of feedback into as they wrote it, the councillors also added to our Environmental Initiatives Fund an extra $30,000 per year to be targeted directly to food resilience projects. So making sure that the idea of a policy doesn't just kind of get shelved into a pile of policy papers somewhere, but actually there's some $30,000 worth of actual action on the ground that can happen because of it. So that's been a real bonus, and has helped to shift the dial for the city in terms of thinking about food as an important human right, and access to healthy, sustainably grown food. And we also helped to develop a community gardens guide and then redevelop it when it wasn't working. So for the city. Luckily, there were a couple of photos in this presentation. So sorry for all of the words and the rabbiting on, but here's a very small example, but of kind of how we've supported this community group over the years. So growing gardens and communities. If you can see, I don't know if it's on your right. On my right, there's a lady there wearing a bucket hat and has a yellow thing on her shirt. Her name's Beth Lou, and we love her. And she had a dream to go into people's homes and put in these little gardens, and these little garden beds are made up of windmill packaging. So the outer things, they fold up, and she lays them in there. She comes along, she lays newspaper down, and we bring a load of compost and put fresh seedlings in. And each home that she goes into, it gets 3 or 4 of these each time, and then she goes back and helps to make sure that they know how to grow their vegetables. So these are people, obviously, you can see this here, it's just a bare lawn in a very bare backyard. And they're now able to grow a few vegetables, and then often this grows from here. It's just the starter. And so over the last, I'm not sure if, over the last few years, I think Beth has helped to lead out at least 150, I think it was 180 gardens in people's backyards, basically in Palmerston North City. And we helped to, so she's an unincorporated society, but as something that was needing more support, like physical ongoing support, we helped to get a fund, not our fund, but another fund. We helped to fund some staff time to help her deliver those on a weekly basis for about 3 years. And we've shifted the model slightly now. We're helping to educate in different ways, but that was a pretty amazing program with lots of great outcomes. So that's a little summary of the people that have been involved in that program. Oh, look, this is not my email address, but that is our Facebook page, Manawatū Food Action Network, enm.org.nz, and that you can get hold of our food action lead, Maury, on food.action@enm.org.nz. I think I've talked for long enough, and I don't even know if that was interesting. So I'll just try and stop my sharing.
Thanks so much, Madz. We've probably got seeds for questions there if you've got a bit more time just to ask, and maybe we can pose them to the group and I'll feed them back to you. So is there any?
That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah, me. Hi, Madz, it's Rita here.
Can you hear that?
Rita, kia ora. Cuddles to you.
Yes. Hey, my question is, how we are a community garden here in Golden Bay, and
Yeah.
we have tried to become an environmental hub, but it has not been easy. So in your case, it seems like you're more an overarching, keeping in contact, having your fingers in all the different groups that are working. Do you work a lot with the community gardens? And how many are there in Palmerston North, in the area that you are talking about? The river.
Yeah. That's a good question. I don't know the exact number, and actually Maury, our food action lead, is actually doing a needs assessment and an assessment of that right now. So he's we've got a fair idea of how many community gardens are. I think what I would say is there's a handful, 5, 6, 10 community gardens that are kind of established and available. Does that make sense? So that you can see them on a piece of public land. I think you could say there's 6 on public land in Palmerston North. But then beyond that, we've got some community gardens that sit on private land or have special niche kind of communities that they are for. So Pacifica Community Gardens, or the Bhutanese community have one in Fielding. There's a new community garden on a private piece of land in the middle of the 4412 in Highbury that has been put together by one of our groups that we help work with. so they're not all completely advertised. And then the question you asked really was around how do we support that, or are we active in those? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I see, community gardens are a tricky beast. I've had a few in my real life, back when I wasn't just sitting behind a computer all of the time. And I think that they need, you'll know, Rita, if you've got them, is you need that kind of driving person, the person or group of people that really are passionate about it, to keep asking the questions, to keep saying, where are we at? How are we going with the garden? What needs happening now? Reminding people to turn up, finding the seeds, organising the compost, talking to the guy who does the grass clipping so that you can make your own compost. All of that stuff, like, it needs a brain power and a driver, and sometimes people get tired, and they're not always the same person. They don't always know how to ask for help. So there's a variety of things around that. And so what we're trying to do at the moment is actually, we've kind of created a little survey, some of which will be done via an actual survey, but mostly Maury's going out with questions to actually meet with those people and say, look, go down to their garden, see how they're going, how is their energy, and then what is it that actually, what are the themes that are coming out from those community gardens as to what they need right now? Like, are they needing more communications? Do they need more people to turn up? Do they want us to put things in the newsletter? Do they want to meet together? Those drivers that are really pushing, to make things happen in each one of those gardens, do those people want to meet together and to talk about their, like, their common issues or common struggles that they're coming up with? Is that something that they'd like us to provide? Do they need access to trailers and vans and compost, or have they got that sorted? Do they know how to build their own compost? So we're kind of asking that, but I don't have all the answers.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Matt, because of course you know the area we are in, and because we are the only one in quite a wide area. Golden Bay is big. Yeah. But then we are over the hill. We actually have a community gardens network.
Great.
Yeah, just listening to you, it just inspires me. It just brings something like, to share more knowledge.
Yeah, and I think it's what I think is difficult with, well, not difficult. I think it's an acknowledgement that actually, the role that we're playing takes a significant amount of energy in itself. Does that make sense? Like, so I think it's acknowledging that the people that are running the gardens themselves have their full energy in that. So they haven't also got time to lift their heads and go, oh, there's other gardeners and I should get on the phone and give them a call and see how they're going. And maybe we could organise a meeting to catch up, and, we could network together. Like, that's another whole role or another whole energy to even look at that. Does that make sense? And that's exactly what how our network formed. It comes out of that same sense of, we're doing biodiversity work, we're pulling weeds, we're trapping pests, we're doing all of this, and all our energy, all our spare time is focused on the doing in this one small block. I haven't got time to find out everybody's emails and put them on a list and then email them and say, can you come in on Wednesday at 10 o'clock and have a conversation and a cup of tea? Like, and then when we do turn up, what are we actually going to talk about, and how are we going to move forward together? So yeah.
Madz, were you familiar with the Aotearoa Community Gardens Network, the across the country? It's a loose network, but there was a second survey done recently. Were you? Is your area?
Is that the one that Matt Morris is doing?
Yeah, he's right here now. Yeah.
Yeah, he's.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Did you just hear from him? He was on your program?
He's right here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, hello. It's really hard for me. Oh, hi.
But talk about it, because I didn't get onto that. I would do.
I am aware of a little bit of that, and I'm pretty sure that Maury's been talking to Matt about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The survey that was used.
Yeah.
That also.
I see another question in the back, Debbie.
Yeah, I was wondering, how are you funded now for your organisation? That I presume you're not all volunteering your time to do this.
No, I'm not volunteering. I'm sorry. I'm not that awesome. I have bills to pay. Our organisation is really well, is funded by a variety, but like I said, we earlier on in the piece that we're the sector lead organisation for the Palmerston North City Council for the environment sector. So with that comes a decent chunk of contract. And so we have some deliverables around that, but our deliverables match our strategic aims around connecting people for food resilience. So our three main deliverables are around food sovereignty connections, circular economy connections, and biodiversity connections. We're not funded for climate action, but and we don't have a staff person dedicated to that at the moment, unfortunately. But so we get and that money that we give away is also funded partly by the City Council and also by Eastern and Central Community Trust. So the Eastern and Central Community Trust funding comes with an operational portion. And then, so those are our two biggest funders at the moment. And then we get some funding for Horizons from our regional council for some projects. And we also get some operational funding from lotteries through the community fund. And then we start kind of trickling down from there in terms of smaller and smaller funders for various different specific things. Our main funding from the City Council is significant, though. We're currently the highest paid sector lead in the city. So we've got some decent expectations on us, but yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
We used to get some Ministry for the Environment funding through Environment Hubs Aotearoa, but that has dried up at the moment. And there's a few other things. Yeah.
How many people have you got in your organisation that you need to?
Yeah, we have 10 part-time staff.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't listen to the whole question.
I was just going to say that aren't volunteers or funded to.
Oh yes, so paid staff, we have 10 part-time staff, which make up just on 5 full-time equivalents. I'm the only full-time person. Until this year, we were all part-time staff. So we have, our org structure is, I'm the general manager, and we've got 3 PO-leads. So the food sovereignty PO-lead, he's about 24 hours a week. Circular economy is Di from down your way. She's amazing. She does 30 hours a week, and we've got a new biodiversity lead who's doing 20 hours a week. And then we have some kind of back office staff as well, an administrator, a comms lead. She's pretty critical. So she does all our newsletters and social media and making sure that we have a plan every time we try to run a project. Does our branding and helps to develop we do a pretty nice looking annual report every year, which has helped. I think, there's some things like that which seem like we're wasting money. We were like, we're investing in our time into writing, our stories up in a very strategic, like writing it so it's readable, so it's beautiful, so we're giving good pictures, so when our annual report is submitted to the Charities Commission, it's on the public record for everybody to see, but it makes us look really flash, and I think we've done that I think this might be our 4th year that we've had a really nice looking annual report coming out. But I've noticed a significant shift in the amount of money that we've been able to attract into the organisation to do the work because we look flash, not because we are, but because we've, kind of upped our game a little bit in terms of the stories that we're presenting. So I don't know, that was a side shoot, but there you go. And we have a guy who does some systems and administration, some sort of helps us to keep our database tidy and make sure that we report our numbers into the right place as well. And a cleaner, he's the most important person.
Madz, I had a question about advocacy. When you're doing that, are you going for anyone, or have you got some key people that you're kind of focusing on in terms of the councillors how did you establish that relationship and also get kind of established in council to say, oh yeah, we should listen, and how did you get this policy going? Because that's fantastic.
I think that I definitely can't take any or all of the credit for how we got here. It's been 20 years of squeaky wheels, and I've been around here I've been 10 years in the organisation, but a lot of it was really passionate individual volunteer board, like management committee members and board members of our organisation who every time the councils would have a long-term plan or a budget or anything that was had any kind of environmental tinge would sit down and write a submission and then turn up and speak to it and say the same things, say, food is important, the climate is important, biodiversity is important, like, why are you doing this? And for most of for probably over half of the last 20 years, that was not scoffed at, but they got well known, but they weren't really making much headway. Does that make sense? Like, it could have been, we may as well give up. But I think it's been probably 6 years. The last 6 years, things have started to shift. Okay. And that has been based on those people that stood there and said that over and over again for the last 20 years. They're still sitting there. Sometimes if I make a submission, or a verbal submission on behalf of the organisation, I'll turn up and the Beth will be there and Marilyn and Kevin will be there. Like, the people that have been there saying these things all along will sit there and listen and support. And it's pretty amazing to sort of stand on their shoulders, but not stand on, but they formed those initial kind of squeaky wheels, and then I think it's come down to I think a shift. Actually, there's relationships in two parts of council. So we have relationships with the councillors themselves. So our board members will, try and talk to some of the friendlier councillors and keep in their ears. Our staff will be talking to the council officers, so we're consistently working with them to say, how can your practices be better? How can we get more support for this thing? So we have a pretty good community development team at the city, and I think that they've made a huge difference in advocating for this sector leadership model that they currently are working under. So that I think we've just finished our first 3 year. We've just finished our first 3 year partnership with them. Before that, we were in a contestable round. So we now are kind of a contracted. We negotiate our contract every 3 years with them rather than contesting it. Does that make sense? So it's quite a significant shift, and that has come from the community development officers talking with our community organisations in the city and kind of recognising that there's sort of two different levels of organisation. One is a organisation that is just delivering, specific services, like they might be delivering education services for, mothers and babies, like it's very specific, and they have to provide, 10 trainings a year or 20 trainings a year, and for that they get X thousand dollars, and then there's several organisations, not just us. There might be an arts organisation that's doing similar work to what we're doing, or not just providing arts classes, but they're providing arts classes and bringing artists together and doing an artist trail and, hosting the main venue for arts people in the city. So they've become the arts sector lead. And that came through the council's offices really recognising that. And what that has allowed us to do now is our reports don't go to the council offices, just to the staff to be read and then put into another report. Our reports actually go to the council table because we've got a partnership agreement with the council. We have to go to the council table and present our report to them every year. So then we're standing in front of those 13 or 15 councillors and saying, this is what we've done, this is how we've achieved our really re-embedding us as an important group to listen to. And we keep going back and saying, look, we're representing our 65 members. It's not just about us, but we're here to say, there's a whole bunch of environmental organisations and people that are passionate about this and want to see change. So I guess the other thing is, in our submissions we'll say that we're representing these groups. People have been consulted on this. This is the voice of the sector, not just me who thought it was a good idea.
That's great. Thanks, man. Are there any other questions? Do you do any advocacy work at the government level, especially about the local distribution and sale of produce?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Good question. We occasionally will do a submission to a national issue. Our focus, because we've tried to because I can't actually do everything. In fact, I'm quite behind on quite a few things already. And not just me, but our whole team. We have to kind of put boundaries around it. We used to say we didn't do any national things, but we definitely have been lately. And what the way we choose that is often it'll be a staff person saying, oh my God, I heard this is coming and we really have to fight this thing, so we will do it, but it's not for every single issue. We did, we have presented on that horrible, resource, well, I can't remember the name of it right now, regulatory standards bill, we presented something on that. So, some things where we think are really major and important, we'll do that. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Mads. From Golden Bay, thank you so much for stepping into the space and speaking so inspiringly about what you're doing. It's incredible work. And certainly I think it's food for thought of what we might be able to do, and hopefully maybe reach out and continue to grow these networks of helping each other.
Yeah.
And as you say, standing on the shoulders of giants. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I hope you have a wonderful day.